Hello and welcome back to the Fracking Farmhouse. We've come back inside and Jelly's here, and I was going to do a long thing about the technical stuff about permitted development and national infrastructure project. Our MP, Lee Rowley, he called a debate in the House of Commons, about half-hour debate about this particular thing of making exploratory wells permitted development and production wells national infrastructure projects. Right? It's bonkers plan of the government, we'll get to that later. But the reply that he got from Claire Perry, our Minister of Energy, has made me so angry. I've got to deal with that first, and this might go on a bit. I've even written notes to try. Right, Claire Perry has come out with some of the usual rubbish. It's from the Fossil Fuel Company's word book. Right, she said, right, as soon as you get a flurry, as soon as you get a planning application, you get a circus of protesters from outside the area blocking roads and preventing small children going to hospital.
It is in no one's interests, either in government or in local government or in a community, to have the planning process where it is today. We are stuck in a morass of protest and counter-prevailing information, and frankly I pity any local councillor that gets an application on their desk, because they will shortly have a travelling circus of protesters, most of whom do not hail from the areas where those sites are located, to deal with. And then we have the policing issues, we have protesters blocking roads, stopping young children from getting to hospital, an entirely unacceptable way to express democracy in this country.
Small children, not just any children, but even small children going to hospital. Did she really say that?
Protesters blocking roads, stopping young children from getting to hospital, stopping young children from getting to hospital.
Right, okay, we've been dealing with this planning application for 20 months, right? Objections, 4,000 local objections. Other thing, people, Fracking News, get yourself a copy, Claire. INEOS plans to develop Marsh Lane were opposed by Derbyshire County Council, Tory-led, North East Derbyshire District Council, Eckington Parish Council, Unston Parish Council and Dronfield Town Council. Right, that's local politicians voted for by local people, representing local communities, all objecting to the exploratory well at Marsh Lane that you want to make permitted development. Right? Protesters out of town. It's disgusting that you use that kind of language. Right, what we're actually trying to prevent is a drilling rig coming down. A drilling rig manned by people not from the area, like a big circus, because they've got hundreds and thousands of trucks that will block our roads and probably stop children getting to hospital. Do you see what we're protesting against is what she's accusing us of being, and it's what they're actually proposing, because the drilling rigs will go from well pad to well pad with loads of big trucks, just like a circus, manned from people not from the area. And the profits are not going to go to the area. The profits are going to get shipped out to Grangemouth, to Monaco, where Jim Radcliffe lives. Okay, the profits are not, so it's not a local thing, but the impacts from it, the benefits are not local, but the impacts are local. That's why you need planning permission, Claire. She starts off, actually, I had to get that over first. She starts off by saying people are being unscientific, right? And, you know, we must use rigid science, we must use science in this debate, and facts, so-called facts. And then she goes on to talk about public opinion.
I find it profoundly disturbing that when it comes to exploring an industry, exploring the potential of an industry, we refuse to accept science. I have met, I'm not giving way. So let me then turn to a couple of the facts that were raised. And again, you will have received a data on this today suggesting that the vast majority of the British public are opposed to shale gas exploration. That is not true. That is not true. The data suggests that 13% of people strongly oppose it. Almost 50% of people don't have a view. 15% support it and 2% support it strongly. I.e., most people don't have a view on this. And you know why? Because they understand that being at the behest of a foreign provider of gas is probably not a great thing for British energy sovereignty.
Public opinion cannot be science or facts. Public opinion can never be a fact. The public opinion is a snapshot. It depends how you ask people. It depends the people you ask. Quantum physics, now we're getting into science now, Claire. Quantum physics demonstrates that at a subatomic level, by observing an experiment, you affect the experiment, okay? And when it comes to public opinion, the way you ask the questions alters the response so much. You cannot, public opinion can never be a fact. You know, do you want fracking? Oh, no, I don't. What about exploratory shale gas extraction? Oh, I don't know. Depends on what the questioner looks like. Do I want to agree with them or not? We had a debate, me and Tom Pickering, in Eckington Civic Centre, and Lee Rowley was there. He was the chair, and we had people from, some people I know were pro-fracking when they walked in the room. When we took a vote at the end, one person voted with Ineos, the other, over 100, voted against. So public opinion in that room, Claire, was very strongly against fracking.
We're interested in your views on this. I can probably guess, but let's do it anyway. So the question before you today is, does fracking have a role to play in England's energy mix? All those in favour, please raise their hands now. All right. And all of those against, please raise their hands now. Thank you very much. And is there anybody who is abstaining? So I think the motion is lost. The view of this area is that the fracking does not have a role to play in England's energy mix. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm very grateful for your time.
But then she came out with something pseudo-scientific at the end.
There are far too many people shouting nonsense about this process. Nonsense. Fact-free nonsense. When I was at the Conference of the Parties in Germany last year, Germany has turned its back on nuclear power, something some people in this room would read, and as a result, its emissions are going up as it burns more coal. That is a country in hock to ideology.
And I've heard this story before from Natasha Engel, RMP that we sacked for supporting fracking. And the story goes like this. It's like, in Germany, the Greens got in control and got them to shut down the nuclear power. That meant they burnt more coal and the CO2 emissions went up. Right? I've heard that before. She said it again. She had a quarter of an hour to talk about planning decisions and permitted development, and she talked about this strange thing. So I thought I'd do some research. So I did some research, Albert, and I looked up what actually happened in Germany, right? Because her story fits the narrative of you don't let protesters have their say or things get worse, right? And I had a look at it. This is the net power generation capacity for Germany. And you will see here in 2009-10 where the bottom one is nuclear, and there is a step down. That was the Greens getting a bit of power and shutting that down. What you will notice above, these two are coal, they didn't increase, they just stayed the same. What has increased, because the capacity power has continued to rise despite cutting down that bit of nuclear, capacity power has gone up because solar in yellow, wind power in blue have gone up, right? So yes, the environmentalists got control and cut down nuclear power. I'm not so worried about nuclear as I am CO2, by the way, but that was done, but it's all been replaced and more by renewable energy, clean renewable energy. That wasn't what she was talking about, was she? She was talking about CO2 emissions, because they went up according to Claire Perry, didn't they, Claire? Right? Well, actually, they did go down in 2008, and that was because the bankers crashed the economy and all these factories shut down. Right? Remember that? It was 10 years ago that the bankers crashed the economy. That wasn't ecologists or environmentalists or immigrants for that matter, or poor people. It was the rich people tanking the economy. That's why if you look at CO2 emissions for any Western country, it went down in 2008. That is a completely different story about environmental growth and CO2. Right. But if you look closely, so they can say that the year after there was an increase in CO2 emissions. Right, so I think that's where she's got her myth from. But if you ignore 2008, the bit in red is CO2 emissions from power generation. And after 2009, it is lower every year than it was before they shut off nuclear power. okay? CO2 emissions in Germany continue to go down, and from electricity generation, CO2 emissions continue to go down, with one hiccup caused by the recession, despite switching off nuclear power, because they've got more renewable capacity. The reason they're flatlining now is because their emissions from transport are going up. All right, Claire Perry, do your research. Your thing fits the lovely narrative of we can't let people decide because they'll make a mistake, but actually you can. And what you're doing, Claire, is coming out the old fossil fuel rubbish. Next thing, another thing she said on there. Oh, this is quite comical.
The Honourable Lady says indeed, when the Honourable Lady goes home and turns on her energy supply to cook her children's tea, she will probably turn on, well, she has a solar panel. If I could just please make some progress.
Remember, she's supposed to be talking about permitted development for exploratory wells. And then she says, when you go home and cook your tea, you'll be using gas. And there's a comic moment, because it's a bit off mic, where it's probably Caroline Lucas says, I've got a solar panel and battery. Oh, well, you have. But most people go home and cook their tea on gas. Right? 70% of people. But we know scientifically that if that continues for the next 20, 30 years, 70% of the people heating their homes with gas and cooking with gas, climate change, runaway climate change, right? It's climate catastrophe. So we have to do something about it. And Caroline, with her solar panel on the roof and the battery in the garage, is showing the way forward. We can do that. The technology is there. It's proven technology. We know how we can get off fossil fuels with renewable energy. It can be done. The technology is there. It's political will that needs to change. And she accuses us of being politically motivated. Now, a wonderful thing happened this week. The BBC decided not to put a climate change denier on to balance the debate when talking about climate change. Right, this is huge. Because up to now they've been thinking that, well, the reason they haven't is because there is no longer a debate about climate change. The science is absolutely clear, and I've been seeing it for years where I work. We can see climate change happening. The only people denying it, and I'm thinking here about the Global Warming Policy Foundation, are politically motivated and funded by the fossil fuel companies. If you want to watch a film called Merchants of Doubt, it spells it out for you. But what she's accusing the environmentalists of is being politically motivated. We're motivated by science and evidence that climate change is happening, and it's caused by burning fossil fuels. By having the deniers on there put in the other side, they're the politically motivated ones, right? The Global Warming Policy Foundation doesn't do science, it doesn't do experiments. NASA does, okay? And the British, the Meteorological Office here, there are lots of people doing science which shows that climate change is happening. So we're not politically motivated, Claire. We are scientifically motivated, we are locally based, and that's why we are opposing fracking. And it is bonkers to make exploratory wells permitted development. So anyway, I've calmed down a bit, jelly's gone. To sum up, the solutions to climate change are technical, but in order to enact them, we need political will. We need political will of people with more courage than mouthpieces for the fossil fuel industry like Claire Perry, who let herself down, she let the climate down, she let Parliament down by that load of drivel she let out on Wednesday. And I'm really glad the debate happened, but it sharpened things up, and we don't need fracking, okay? And making it permitted development is insane. And if it's still before October the 24th when you see this, get your own objection in. Go to Cole Aston and Dronfield Against Fracking's website. Bob Street's done some wonderful work there, things you can pick up. But get objecting, write in and tell Claire Perry. And Claire, if you're watching this, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching the Fracking Farmhouse. If you like what you see, me and Oscar say, please click like and please subscribe to our channel and please share it with your friends. Let's get this thing out on Facebook. We are trying to get the message out there. We don't need fracking. Thank you very much.